Thanks once again for joining us on the channel, and today's going to be a little bit different. We're going to do a test and tune on the suspension of this 450cc dirt motorcycle. We're going to do that because I have today off and a private track is open, and we're going to go there and do a little bit of testing. There's a few changes I made to the internal components of this fork setup, and being older and heavier and slower, I need to find out if it is maximized for my performance. We're going to touch base on some of the car stuff also, but main thing is I need to get this loaded up and get up the road to this private track so we can finally test this Showa TAC fork. It's an air fork. They don't really run these anymore. This is a few years old, but I like it because of how light this bike is. It's much lighter than today's 450s, and it's also every bit as fast. It's primarily designed for racing, and I've raced for the better part of 30 years. I'm getting a little older. I don't race anywhere near as much as I used to, but I do still ride. We are going to take a look at the Camaro, which is road ready, by the way. I did drive it. I have a little bit of footage of that we're going to show you in a few minutes. The Ford F100 has a bunch of power steering stuff and some new interior. We're waiting on a seat for that. I'm going to show you the top end and clutch. I did a real quick refresh of this engine because when you're dealing with things like this and you're going off jumps under throttle, you need, number one, the machine to carry your big fat ass, and number two, you need the machine to not break down, because if you break down under power going over a jump, you could end up not going home. I've had new bikes. I don't like the way they feel. Today's rider is a tall, young, skinny, kind of rider, and I'm just not that, and I keep going back to the bikes that feel like the ones that I used to win on. I have close to 50 podium finishes, which is first, second, and third in various classes from, beginner all the way up to plus 30 AB. So I've ridden and freestyle motocrossed for decades, but this bike feels great. I just need to get it tuned in so I can be that much better. So let's get this thing loaded. We're going to a private track for testing and tuning today. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be hot. Let's go.
Then explain it.
Yeah. I was explaining earlier in the opening segment that this fork setup is called a Showa. It's a manufacturer, Showa TAC, T-A-C. Not even sure what it stands for, other than really expensive, don't break it. But they don't come on modern bikes like this. This is a 23 or 24 YZ 250F. 4-stroke. This is what Hayden Deegan is dominating the class on, is exactly this bike, but his is in pro form. So at any rate, these forks, these are made by Kayaba. They're twin chamber. They have steel or titanium springs in them, and inside of the springs they're immersed in oil, and the oil has, picture like a stack of washers and a chunk of aluminum with some holes drilled in it. So what happens is, as you compress it, the oil is being forced through that valve. You can control the way or the rate that oil is squeezed through the valve. So you can revalve them, stack your shims, you put springs for your weight. There's all kinds of adjustability. And then once you get your base set up, you have compression and rebound that controls those valves even more, where they'll go slower or faster based on the type of riding you do or how you want your bike to feel. Inside of these forks are not springs. What you have is a twin chamber. You have an inner air chamber and an outer air chamber. Then you have on the bottom a balance chamber. So what these are basically is, it's a giant bomb trying to kill you. Your spring rate is determined by your inner and outer air chamber, and you do your spring rate based on your body weight. So I have this set to where I think I need it, and then your balance chamber determines where the fork rides in the stroke. The way I had it set up before, it was really stiff. It was trying to stand me up. So I made some adjustments, and we're here today to find out how good they are and if I can fine-tune it even more. Yeah, I'm tired. I would say we got this bike dialed in pretty darn good. I was able to adjust the air pressures in the fork and also dial in the compression and rebound clickers and start to hit some of the jumps. One thing when you're dealing with dirt bikes, you can always check to make sure your riding position is accurate, meaning you're putting the weight on the right peg, you're leaning the bike over far enough, and a good indicator of that is right here on the wheel. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a slight black edge all the way around the wheel that has no dirt on it. If you look close, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I can see it in real life. There's like a black line where the rim is rubbed clean, you see. And it's both sides. So what that tells me, we even have it on the front. If you look real close there, you can see that black line going around the outside edge. What that means is, just like on a car, motorcycles have a contact patch. And this particular center section, when riding upright, is the contact patch. When you're riding upright, the center of your tire gets wear. When you lay the bike over, the sides begin to get wear. And that's just common sense. But the indicator of proper technique, and of course air pressure, but that's a different conversation, is getting the bike to go over, putting weight on the outside peg, and you actually sit, see how this seat is sort of square? You actually sit right here. And this pushes the bike down and moves the contact patch because of flex. The rubber will actually flex, and it rolls the tire to right here. So now you have a tractable surface on an angle, and that's what makes these bikes turn. And just like I said, an indicator of proper technique is taking a look at a tire and a rim after a good ride, and you'll see if you have that clean edge. And that's another thing. If you go look at a used bike and the bike is clean, there's no dirt, but this whole little edge right here is chrome. They've worn the anodizing off. That means that that bike has a ton of time by someone who really knows how to ride it. So keep that in mind. But tire roll cleans the edge of the rim, and if you're doing it right, it should look just like that. What was the goal for today? What was I looking for? I was looking for a little bit more what they call plush type of riding. So as you enter a corner, you should be able to slide forward when you get on the brakes. If you get on the brakes, the bike should take a set. It should naturally compress a little so that you're able to get back on the power and eventually come out of the corner with momentum. And before, it really wasn't doing that. It wasn't standing me up, but it definitely was not compressing and rolling in. So as I dialed in a couple of the compression and rebound settings and was able to get the pressures right, everything seems to be matched right now to where it was pretty good on that track. But if I go to another track that has different dirt and different obstacles, different turns, I'm gonna have to do that all over again. That's really why these are no longer used, because there's a lot of fiddling around, but honestly it's technical and I really like that. So for me, this bike's fantastic. It's lighter than a modern brand new bike. I've had them. This has no battery, it has no springs, it's just way lighter, and it makes literally the exact same horsepower. So I'm stoked, I got it done. I need to clean it up and get back in the garage and start working on the race truck. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you've already seen this truck. This is what I've been calling lately the race truck, because it's just the easiest thing to refer to. The reason I call it a race truck is because it's coilover suspension, tubular, 4-link, it's all QA1, it's Gen 3 Coyote engine, 10R80 trans, all of which I built this truck. I built it on the channel a couple years back. It's here to get some upgrades, and there's a handful of things that I've done already. And there's still a handful of things that need doing. One of the main things, these doors were so rattly, they made so much noise. All of the rubber was bone dry. So I rebuilt this door, and I also added power locks and power windows, which I'll show you in a second. I have to do the other side, which we're gonna run through real quick. But I mean, they shut like a bank vault. So this door is the stock 1974, well, 73 through 79 era doors. That's what these are. But this is basically what you heard while you were driving it. Because all of the rubber, as you can see if you look close there, all right, right there, you can kind of see. And then look up in here, if you can see all of this. It's all so brittle that, look, I mean, it's all so brittle that you can just crumble it with your fingers. It's so bone dry. This was a California truck. It sat in the sun. So all of this is dry. These, we have new locks for these, but they don't fit this glass. It's a different peg, and these are glued in, and you can't buy these anymore. So, I mean, I might be able to find them used, but timing and whatever. So what it is, I'm going to replace all the rubber. There's a rubber that goes in here. There's a rubber that goes in here. I'm going to replace all that. And then there's a latch that basically slides on the glass and squeezes these together to keep them watertight. And like right there, if you can see that one on that other door. I don't know if the camera wants to behave. These digital cameras with autofocus, you know. So anyway, yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna fix this. I first have to pull the window regulator out, the glass out, this long vent window strut, and then start peeling away all this broken rubber that you have to basically chip it out a little piece at a time. I'll show you the passenger door, which is already done and works pretty cool. And then I will give you a brief rundown on how I did this one. We're gonna take it apart. It'll be quick and put it all back together. It'll be like 1, 2, 3 TV magic. This one I've already done the power lock setup. This is actually for the driver door, and this will be the rod that'll actuate the driver door, and I mounted it in here like this, and then I mimicked the shape of another rod with this and bent it, cut it, anchored it so that it does what it's supposed to do, and you can still open and close or lock and unlock the door with the key. But now you have key fobs like this, like a modern car, that will enable you to lock and unlock your doors. I'm also going to try and get the horn to function. I don't know if I can do that. I tried it yesterday, and although there's a signal wire for the horn, it's a low voltage power wire, and I need a low voltage or ground to signal the relay for the horn. So that's a whole other conversation. Forget that for right now. There, you can hear it energized the first time you use it. But here you go. And I checked. I put this thing all the way at the end of the driveway, and I still hit it, and it does its job. So it's brilliant, actually. I was really concerned that this was going to take a ton of work. It was going to be very difficult. It was pretty simple on this door with this kit. Another cool thing, these are infinitely adjustable, and they have a cover over them. Now, this door has a regulator in it that's behind this strut, and it would normally have this crank behind the door skin. It doesn't, because there's no room for it. But what there is room for is the door panel, and this slim switch fits behind the panel. So it's actually brilliant. And you still have a window crank, so it doesn't affect your old school looks. But when people go to crank the window, you gotta warn them, because you don't just reef away, you know, wrench on this thing. You just down for down. Brilliant, right? All new rubber. This thing's like a bank vault. They're just awesome. I'm actually pretty impressed. I'm pretty impressed that I got it to work that good, because I was a little concerned that I wasn't going to be able to get it. You know how that goes. You start something, you're like, oh man, you know, back in the past we built some race cars from scratch. I mean, literally tube chassis cars with power plants and suspension, push rod suspension. You start that stuff and you go, well, I hope this works, and you get all the way through and you find out it doesn't, and you got to start over again. And I was worried that would happen with this, but it didn't. It really didn't. I had to do a little bit of thinking how I was going to get this switch mounted from the back, then sandwiched with the actual power regulator that's in there. And I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to find a spot for this electric servo in there, because you have to keep clear of the window going up and down, you know. And the reality, this one was not bad. I mean, if you have one of these trucks and you want to do power windows and power locks, it's really, really easy. So if you want to know exactly what I used, you can leave a comment below, and I'll try and post a link to the items that were actually used if you need that sort of thing. I'm sure there's tons of other famous people doing 10 times better jobs on the internet, but if you need to know anything, I'm happy to help. This is the part you can't get, is this frame. So we're just gonna put all new rubber, clean it up, put new seals in it, and it'll be just fine, as we like to say. Here's the switch. It has to be mounted on the outside of the skin like I showed you over there. It'd be cool if I could go like that and mount it and then slide this in behind it. If you see these 3 bolts, they go here and it's back there. This little dot would stick out right here. There's not enough room in the mounting and the door to get this switch. So I have to mark and drill and then screw these on with Loctite from the back. Then I can put this in. Before I do that, I have to slide the glass in there, and I put a block of wood down in the bottom to hold the glass up so I can easily get this roller in the track. I couldn't do it before. I couldn't get the old one out because the grease was dried solid. I don't know how that thing even rolled up and down, but so we'll get that. I gotta get this mark drilled. Hang on a second. This will be mounted. Just 1 minute. Let's see what happens. No whammies, huh? All right, so they're backwards. So let's do this. Up should go up, down should go down. Bingo. It's pretty good. Oh yeah. Copying what I did over there, I drilled 2 holes in the same place. So that's gonna go inside the door, actually like that. And then this rod, I took the bicycle spoke, and I bent it this business, unless I lengthen every single wire on here, is getting mounted inside the door. It's reasonably watertight, and with all new seals it should be fine. We're gonna put it like that. It'll be good. It's all good. Let's double check our power windows, make sure it clears. What happened? Oh, the power came unhooked. Hold on, power. You need power. There we go. So, lock, unlock. Let's make sure the power window's clear. Good deal. Now I can button all the wire up and insulate and cover these, and it'll be fabulous. I have this mechanism inside, all the wires secured, lengthened and pulled through except for these. They're my temporary power, which I also am going to bring through here. I've got the controller. There's 2 fuses hidden in this door, so if there's ever a problem with the power windows, the fuses to this controller are in the door. But it shouldn't matter because it's all new rubber and it's vented properly. It'll be fine. This is the radio frequency antenna, which I'm going to just leave a little piece of it sticking out. I might just leave it behind the plastic, but whatever. So, doesn't hit any of the wires, it just makes it. I'm going to put my hand in there. But there's a gear that rotates down, it misses this speaker and this bundle of wires by like that much. But it's in, that's it. So now I can start to button these doors up, get the covers on, the new decorative handles, not this old crank stuff. But yeah, that took a while. That was not quick. But they work. It's gonna be very cool. Tilt, you know, it's gonna be very cool.
It's always fun to go fast, but it's not always fun to try and resurrect the engine and transmission out of a junkyard pile of crap. This 91 MR2 came to me because I thought I needed the transmission, and as it turns out, I did not need it, and here's what happened.
It's pretty windy out today, but I've decided to try and start it. I know that sounds insane because it's absolute garbage, and it's been a parts car for years. I mean, it's just garbage. It was a non-turbo car, obviously, so there's not much desirable left. I mean, someone cut a quarter off of it. The front was hit. The rack is gone. What's it got? A decent passenger seat. Supposedly good transmission and good engine. So that's it. I'm gonna try and fire this up. First thing I noticed right there is your ECU. That's where it's supposed to be. And clearly, like most of the car, it's not here. I've had plenty of these things, but this one, being wrecked and scavenged for years, it's highly unlikely that this is going to run. That should hold the hood open. So let's perform a couple of basic checks, huh? Is there oil in it? Yeah, that's oil. Doesn't look too bad, actually. Okay. Does it have spark plugs? You can't see it, but there's a plug in there. That's good. I know that's a starter. That's a pill bottle. I guess that was to keep vermin out. Speaking of which, yeah. Here. Yikes. Yeah, that's not encouraging, is it? Over here, we have this used to be cruise control, and it looks like they took the module. Yeah, this cable used to control a module that was connected here. This, it's the throttle, but does it throttle? Yeah, no, it does not. The throttle body itself, I don't know that it's just the cable. It could be just the cable, but that throttle body's got to work. I do need to spin the engine over by hand. We need to go down there, which is pretty tight, but I need to spin the engine over to make sure. Supposedly oil was poured into the plug holes when it was stored, but it's really hard to turn, so what I think I'll do is just cut a hole in the side and get a ratchet on the block and rotate it. Fuel, I know from experience that right there is your fuel filter and probably regulator, if I'm honest. I don't know how this worked in 91 or 92, but this is the fuel pressure line that goes to a rail in there that powers the injectors. Looks like one relay's missing. I have those. I have a bunch of those. Not sure what went here. I don't know what that is. But the ECU plugs in those 3 plugs. And then I think I'm going to try and jump it from here. I'm going to try and force it to start. I got to clear that out first though, because that ain't good. But the main thing is the ECU, which, having beers on eBay one night, I ordered it. So I want to plug in the ECU, get a battery hooked up in the front, clean that out, rotate the engine with the plugs out, and then see if I can force it to fire, which would be awesome. I don't know why. I have no idea. Forget WD-40 and PB Blaster. You want this stuff, this Aerocroil. This is the best stuff you can get. Too bad it doesn't do anything for tires, because we had a problem with this tire. I don't know if I happen to mention that, but yeah, take a look at that. So don't worry about that. That's another story. I will clean that out here in a second, but Something tells me that's not real reliable. Wah, wah, wah. Wah, wah, wah. Well, something happened anyway. I'm sure that's not great. I mean, that's a step in some direction. Spray and some determination, I'm able to operate the throttle freely. I almost guarantee you though, if it does ignite, it's gonna have problems. But it should be fun to hear. And that ECU is arriving in the morning, but to you that's only a few more minutes and the ECU will be here. We'll plug it in and power it up, and I'll force feed the starter some juice, see if we can ignite the ignition. But now that I got this free-ish, I want to put a spring on there and pull the cable and see if I can get it to go watcha. That's right, I said watcha. Maybe it wants to live, I don't know. Let's take these out of here. And let's go down in there and get those plugs out. See what this looks like, and then I'll try to turn the engine. Wow, that's encouraging, if that's the right plug. I mean, I've seen worse on cars that ran. I mean, it's sat for I don't know how many years, a couple decades anyway. Let's open the throttle. I tell you what, if we energize that starter motor, this engine should spin and it should blow the debris out of the holes. Well, suck in the debris, blow the debris out here and there. Hopefully this isn't full. Supposedly that's a catalytic converter. I don't know. I don't care. But first things first, let's find the power wire to that starter. I want to see if this is continuity to ground, because if it is, I might just melt something, which I don't want to do. No. Okay, so that's our power. I'm going to energize that. If you energize this, it should turn the engine. Maybe. All right, let me get set up. Well, aside from this battery being dead, we are getting some life. I don't know why I can't force this starter to turn though. Maybe, let me see one more thing. Usually like on an old GM starter, you just hit the big wire and the thing goes. The motor's spinning, but the solenoid's not actuated. Okay. The starter motor spins, but the solenoid's not kicking it out. But that's okay. I ain't afraid of that, because there's probably a way to do it. There's another wire. I see it. I don't know if I'm going to get... I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it before it rains, but... Ever everybody's always doing these videos on YouTube of reviving old Chevys and, you know, old Dodges and all this, you know, stuff in the woods. I'm not doing that because I don't have an old Dodge or an old Chevy. I have an old Toyota, and it's a long story. We were going to use this transmission in a project, and it didn't work out. And the way I understand it, this engine itself is good. I'm just trying to get some life. I want the starter to hit that flywheel, and I will feel a little better. The battery is about to die in this camera, so I kind of got to hurry up. Electronics and hurry up don't like to go together. That's what I'm after right there. That's the starter. Okay, so now we got to get this and that powered, and it should work. It's doing things. Let's put that in there. That could have just shattered the flywheel. I don't know, but the battery's dying. So let me reset and we'll get you in a minute. So what I did next, since I got that to hit, I went to see if the motor would turn. And to be honest, it will not. I cannot get it to turn. And I got a lot of force on it. So I'm going to spray some oil down in the holes. And I'm going to walk away from it for a day or two and come back and try to turn the motor. If the motor doesn't turn, this whole thing's going in the garbage. Which is a shame, because I was trying to save something, but it's not worth any more time, I will tell you that. More than likely, whatever was not sitting in oil on the bottom half of the engine rusted. That's really what happens. So anyway, I'll put a little more of this. We'll pick it up in a couple of weeks. Sorry. I'll put a little more of this, we'll pick it up in a couple days, see if it turns. If not, see ya.
Well, it didn't turn. As a matter of fact, it was stuck so solid you couldn't even push it. So that solved itself.
Enough about that thing. I got a scrapper kid's coming to pick it up right now. He's going to give me a couple bucks for it. That's cool. Bye-bye. So on to this thing. Y'all remember the Camaro. It's running and driving. A couple little things need to be done. One of the things I showed you a minute ago was the tires. So yeah, one of the tires came completely apart just sitting here. So I did the date code on all these tires. This one and this one are the year 2000, so they're 24 years old. This one is a 2016, as you can tell from the slightly different logo. So that's a modern era tire, but it's a 2016, and that's too old for a car of this caliber. This one, as you can see, the logo's a bit different. This is a 1999. So you can tell how many miles were put on it from the time it was built. If you look real close, you can see these wear indicators are not even touched. So essentially, these are brand new 25-year-old tires. And that's the story with this car. You know, it was put together and it sat, and then the cam went flat somewhere in its life, and then it sat some more, and it ended up here. And now that it's here, it runs and drives, new motor, ZZ4. We're going to talk about all that later. You can go back, check some of the other videos to see exactly what the story is with that car. It's fantastic. But I just wanted to bring you up to speed on what is happening with the Camaro, because we are going to do some burnouts on brand new tires. If you can believe that, that's true. We're going to put new tires and we're going to spin them. Man, that's good bourbon. I'm just kidding. It's not bourbon. I'm not even sure what bourbon is, actually. I know it's like a whiskey or something. Oof. Not for me. Anyway, what is for me is this engine, and it's running great. Everything is set up. I still have to wire the fans. I think I have a little fuel leak. It's so minor. I think that came from sitting dry for so long, because the car sat for near 30 years, but this engine came out of something else. It came out of a C10 pickup truck, and it's a ZZ4, which is like a GM crate motor that's high output, aluminum heads, mild cam, that sort of thing. It needs a accelerator pump gasket, near as I can tell. But I have to take the carb off, flip it over, whatever. Right now it runs, it actually drives. I put new tires on the wheels, as you saw. I still have to wire the fans. I still got to do a couple other minor things. I finally got the temperature gauge working. I still need to do what's called a pulse generator. It takes this square-shaped speedometer driver and converts it into a digital pulse, so the digital LCD gauge can read it. That was on there before from the 90s, and the pulse generator that they had looked like it was a series of adapters, and I'm not 100% sure that it even works, and I do know one thing: it leaks like a sieve. So I'm going to use one that came from Dakota Digital. I'm going to put that on the TH350 trans, and I'm going to run the new wires. One's a ground, one's a signal, and I believe one's a power. And we're going to run that to the digital gauge, and hopefully this new technology matches that old technology. Will it be accurate? I don't know, but what it should do is still send a signal pulse. In my opinion, I think that's good enough, because I wasn't sure if that would work with the temperature gauge. We have the old LCD, liquid crystal display temperature gauges, you know, and inside of there, it's a different sending unit, but I tried one from Dakota Digital and it absolutely reads perfect. It's within a few degrees because I tested it with a pyrometer. So if I get within a few miles per hour with this pulse generator and I can still read it, that's all that matters. One final thing I need to do is probably drop the fuel tank that we just put in. I didn't replace the sending unit while it was in there. I picked it up, I was like, wow, that's old. It probably works, otherwise it wouldn't be in there. It may not work, I don't know. I know it's not sending a signal to that gauge, but it's like a $25 unit from Summit, and I'll drop the tank, put a new one in, double check continuity to the wires from the gauge to the sender, and that should be that. And then realistically, this thing is ready to go out on the road like a distance cruise. It's all the small stuff. Everyone who builds cars or messes with cars knows the easy part is getting the engine to fit in the hole, but the hard part is all the little million details.
Before we get that Camaro out on the road, I want to show you a little bit of what I was doing with this 450. I had just put a top end in it the night before. I got it all put together and was going to start it when I buttoned it up today, but I realized overnight that I had an incorrect piston pin in it, so I had to come out and take it apart again before I fired it up. The bike was stock. It had very low hours on it, but I was doing a preventative maintenance piston replacement, and I ended up using a Wiseco, which has different measurements on the wrist pin of the piston. And I had it all put back together, and then I saw that incorrect piston ring that I missed inside of the box. So I took it all apart to get it right.
This was out of the stock piston, and I didn't see this in the box. So I thought, well, I'll just reuse the old one. And then I found it and realized that they're different lengths, which would mean this piston could move, this pin could move back and forth, potential to rock the piston. And if the piston rocks, it will seize in the bore, and that's bad deal. So I couldn't sleep. I'm like, I got to get out there. I got to change that pin. This is your life when you're depending on it to get you over an obstacle, you know. If it fails mid-flight, so do you. That's it. Well, there you go. New piston, new clutch, fresh oil. That thing's ready to race. Now, what are we going to do about the rider? Yeah, I went the wrong way.
That is where we're going to have to leave it for this week. There is just so much going on, and I crammed it all into one long video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you come back, like, subscribe, share, comment, whatever you got to do to share the love. Stick around. There's a whole lot more coming. Thanks. I'll see you soon.
Hell yeah. You know this thing gets it. Just wait. Hang on. We're going to do that right now. Hold on.